I will never forget that moment. The figure of an elderly woman about to board the train at platform 32. She smiled quietly, glanced in my direction, then began walking toward the train door. There was a strange glow in her eyes, a mixture of peace and resolution. I shouted, "Wait!" My voice echoed through the empty station. As my voice reverberated, repeating several times, she didn't turn back. She shouldn't board that train. No one should. I ran, with all my might. The sound of my feet pounding the floor echoed like heartbeats. But the old woman's figure had already disappeared into the train. Just before the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of the conductor, a tall, slender man. The number 32 gleamed on the chest of his uniform. He stared at me intently, bowing his head just slightly. His eyes held understanding and compassion. The next moment, the train disappeared into the mist. Literally, into the mist. All that remained was a faint cold air lingering about. This happened in the 10th winter of my employment at the station. Until then, I thought I was just a station attendant, selling tickets, checking schedules, guiding lost travelers. A normal, ordinary job. Now, I think I'm something like this station's guardian, someone who stands between the strange events that occur here and the people who get caught up in them. 3 days later, I found the elderly woman's obituary in the newspaper. It said she had passed away peacefully in her sleep. At her bedside was an old photograph, a young version of her with a small boy. Her son, I suppose. According to the article, her son had gone missing 40 years ago. That day, they had been heading to the station. My mornings always begin the same way. I arrive at the station before sunrise, stepping onto the still cold floor as I open the ticket booth. I love the moment when the early morning light creates colorful patterns on the floor through the stained glass skylights. The station is quiet at this hour. In the distance, the sound of maintenance carts moving through underground tunnels. Occasionally, the sound of a cleaner's mop tapping against the floor. It's peaceful, and I like it. My ticket booth sits at the edge of the central hall. An old brass lattice window separates me from travelers. Over decades, countless fingers have touched and polished that lattice, giving it a unique luster. I often find myself running my fingers over the metal, feeling its texture, as if touching the very history of this station. Selling tickets isn't difficult. Most people already know their destinations. They slide money through the window, state their destination, and don't look up even when I state the price. Sometimes I can read something from their faces: fatigue, expectation, sadness, joy, a momentary contact. But I catch glimpses of stories. I hand over the ticket, and they take it and leave. When my shift at the ticket booth ends, I go to the office. Paperwork, schedules, delay records. Nothing special, but it's stable work with decent pay, and it leaves me time to read books during slow periods or have a beer at the pub after my shift.
You have too vivid an imagination.
My mother's words still echo in my ears. As a child, I used to say I could see things that others couldn't, especially in old buildings. My mother worried and took me to a doctor. In the end, they settled on the diagnosis of a child with a vivid imagination, but I really could see them. The shadows lurking behind the television at night. Something in the window pane that wasn't a face. The sound of footsteps coming down the stairs in an empty house. The first visitor appeared on the night of my 10th birthday. Awakening at midnight, I found a girl standing at the foot of my bed. A girl in a white dress, with wet hair hanging down. She said nothing, just stood there. Her eyes were deep, as if pleading for something. I wasn't afraid. Rather, I wanted to know what she wanted. "Is there something I can help you with?" I asked. The girl slowly shook her head and whispered, "Not yet time." Then she disappeared as if passing through the wall. As time passed, I learned to ignore it. By the time I became an adult, it had mostly disappeared. Or perhaps I had just convinced myself it had, until I started working at this station. This station is not ordinary. Most people don't notice. It's the largest station for miles around, always busy, a transit point where thousands of travelers pass through daily. They pass through, board trains, move on, but they don't work here. They don't stay. That's the difference. If you spend enough time here, stop moving, and allow the station to settle around you, you begin to notice. Begin to see things that don't fit. This place was never meant to be a station. Hundreds of years ago, when disease swept through the country like fire, the dead outnumbered the living. Cemeteries overflowed, morgues closed their doors, and families died at home and were left to decay there. I remember the stories my grandmother told me. Wear a mask, always when you go into town. Faced with so many dead, the living did what they had to. Instead of graves, they dug holes. Mass graves. Deep trenches carved into the earth where bodies were stacked like firewood. No names, no markers, just earth piled on top of the dead as quickly as possible. Ironically, this station was built as a symbol of hope and renewal. After the epidemic, people needed to move again, to connect. According to old documents, the station's builders knew about the land's past, but they resolved to build life upon death, and cities were built upon the dead, and when, years later, they needed a station, they built it on this land. They laid concrete like a thick, heavy coffin lid, constructing platforms, tunnels, waiting rooms. The bodies were too deep to matter anymore. It had all become history, sealed away, forgotten, but not gone. Bad things have always happened at this station. People don't notice. They don't stay long enough. But when you work here, spend mornings and nights within these walls, you begin to understand. Accidents happen at any station. Delays, lost baggage, occasionally drunken scuffles. But here, things go wrong in ways that don't make sense. Management explains everything away. Human error, misplaced records, lost property. But those who work here know better. There have been many accidents at this station, but there's one accident people still talk about. The old-timers who worked here before me heard it from their old-timers. He was on the night shift, working the tracks as usual. Routine work, making sure everything was in order before the first morning train. No one saw exactly what happened, but most likely, he leaned too far over the tracks. A train passed, too fast, and that was the end. They found his body beside the tracks. His uniform was soaked through, and his arms were still stretched out as if searching for something. But his head was gone. Not crushed, not scattered, just gone. They never found it. Not on the tracks, not in the tunnels, nowhere. I was the first on the scene. An old head station master told me. I'll never forget the sight. The body was there, but the head, nowhere. And the strangest thing was, there was hardly any blood, like it had been severed, but also burned. The station was closed for a month after the accident. Unofficially, upper management was trying to prevent the press from digging too deep. Money was paid to the workers' family, and they were told to keep quiet. It was called a tragedy, an unfortunate accident, and the station reopened. Too soon, I think. This place is a central hub, moving people and goods across the country. Keeping it closed any longer would have meant financial loss. So they put up new signs, painted the walls with fresh paint, and acted like nothing had happened. But late at night, when the station is silent, the last crowds have gone, and only the night shift workers remain, he comes back. The headless worker, they call him. He always looks the same, wearing his old uniform, a gas lamp in one hand, its flame flickering just enough to cast light on the ground around him. He doesn't moan, doesn't rattle chains, just walks slowly and carefully along the tracks, searching. People say he's looking for his head. He keeps to the platforms and tunnels, places the general public doesn't go. There's only one rule when dealing with the headless worker. Greet him. Nothing elaborate, just a small greeting, a nod, a wave. It doesn't matter what you say. What matters is that you say something, because he still thinks he's human, and you don't want him to start thinking otherwise. I met him one night. I confessed to my colleagues at the pub for the first time, and they all went quiet. I vividly remember the night I first encountered the headless worker. I was walking through an underground passage when I saw a small light in the distance. At first, I thought it was another worker or cleaner, but coming closer, there he was. His old brown uniform was outdated, the style my grandfather might have worn, lamp in hand, old uniform, but no head. I froze. My legs wouldn't move. Terror made it hard to breathe, and my heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst through my chest. And in that moment, I remembered my grandfather's stories. When you meet something unseen, be polite. They might have once been human. With a trembling voice, I said, "Good evening." The voice came out as a thin sound, separate from my will. The headless worker paused for a moment, turned toward me. At least his body did. He nodded slowly, then continued walking. In that moment, I understood. He wasn't dangerous. He was just lost. Most people don't notice it at first. During the day, it blends in. It stands at the center of the main landing, where all the walkways intersect. Thousands of people pass by it every day. It's a bear, a large red bear. Everyone thinks it's just part of some strange public art. A giant teddy bear, bright red, standing on its hind legs, seeming to wave at the crowds. Its head nearly touches the ceiling, and its oversized arms stretch wide. My daughter loved to see it. An elderly man told me at my window one day. Every Sunday, we would come to the station to see the red bear. She was 5. She took pictures with a camera and stood around it laughing. That became her last photo. He stared at me. "Don't let children near that bear," he said, and walked away without asking for an explanation. Children have different reactions. Some won't go near it. They look at it from a distance, stop in their tracks, grip their parents' hands tightly, and refuse to approach. They cry, shake their heads, bury their faces in their parents' coats. And then there are other children. They don't just see the bear, they almost seem to recognize it. They wave, personal and small, like waving to a friend. And sometimes they whisper to it. Some years ago, a boy of 5 or 6 stood at the bear's feet, looking up at it while his mother checked the train schedules. He leaned forward, put his hands around his mouth, and whispered something into the fabric. Then he giggled. He went back to his mother and said, "It's okay, Mom. He won't take me." She nodded without looking up from her phone, grabbed his hand, and kept walking. But the next morning, the bear was facing slightly to the left, a subtle change, almost unnoticeable. Only once did I observe the red bear up close after closing time. It was nearly midnight, during the year-end deep cleaning when we needed to clean areas we don't usually access. Management said, "Make sure to clean around the red bear too." There had been a child disappearance recently, and they probably wanted to keep the bear clean to avoid suspicious looks. "I'll go," I volunteered. I didn't want to see the new hires approach the bear. As I approached the bear, silence enveloped the surroundings. The sound of cleaning machines could be heard somewhere in the station, but here, only deafening silence reigned. The bear was watching me. It has an innocent posture that seems to invite laughter, but something was different. The eyes were moving. As I approached with my bucket and cloth, I felt as if those black, glass-like eyes were following me. I told myself it was just my imagination. "Good evening," I said quietly, just as I would to the headless worker. There was no response. As I began wiping around the bear's feet, suddenly I heard a faint sound, like something moving inside the fabric. It wasn't just the sound of friction. It was more like something breathing, something alive. I froze. A cold sensation crawled up my spine to the nape of my neck. "What's wrong?" Turning around, there stood an older cleaner. James. He'd been working at this station for over 20 years. Deep wrinkles were etched into his face, and his eyes held the shadows of someone who had seen things. "Nothing," I replied. "Just wondering what this bear really is." James gave me a sad look. There was an unspeakable fear in his eyes. "Better not to know," he said. "But I'll tell you one thing. Before the station was built, they say there was an orphanage here. During the epidemic, many children died there. Lonely children who died without ever having the chance to be loved." He looked up at the bear and sighed deeply. "The children are hungry. They just want friends." How close that was to the truth, I would later come to know. One night, a cleaner saw the bear's usual smile, the tight black stitches drawn around its mouth. He continued working and returned 10 minutes later. The stitches were gone, as if they had never been there. The fabric around the mouth was looser, and the seam was slightly open. He stared at it for a while, then walked away. He didn't finish his shift and didn't return the next night. "He was a friend from my college days," I told my colleagues. "A sturdy man. But that night, he called me. It yawned," he said. "That was the last time I saw him." Some children never leave the station. The station doesn't talk about missing children, but we workers know. Once every few years, a child gets too close, wanders away while a parent is distracted, and disappears from sight in an instant. Cameras don't catch it. They show children standing near the bear, and in the next moment, they're gone. Security searches but finds nothing. But the bear always looks different afterward. There are subtle changes. The fur around its mouth looks tighter. The stitches on its stomach appear more taut, as if something inside had moved. Days later, the maintenance crew comes to clean the bear. By the time the weekend crowds pour in, it looks normal again. It was the maintenance crew who first opened it. One of the disappearances late at night when the station was nearly empty. The bear had begun to look bad. The fur was stiff, discolored, and the seams along the abdomen had loosened. The plan was simple. Open the seams, remove the old stuffing, scrub it, stitch it back up, and make it look fresh. They cut it open. Inside was no tattered stuffing, no filling at all. What they found were bones. Small bones stuffed deep into the lining, some still intact, others broken and worn. Wires ran through the frame, rusted, twisted, looping around the bones, as if they had been pushed in together. No structure, no pattern, just tangled metal and what had once been human. They didn't call the police. Not officially. The workers who were there don't talk about what happened next. Some quit, others bowed their heads and finished their shifts. The bear was stitched back up by morning. The next day, fresh paint was applied. By the time the crowds returned, nothing had changed. So, my rule is this: find your platform and keep moving. If you see a child staring at the bear for too long, take their hand and walk away. Don't give it a reason to notice you. Most of the strange things in this station don't announce themselves. They sit in mundane places, blend in, and wait for someone to notice. The bear is like that. Platform 32 is like that. And so is the red box, the one in the lost and found. Most of the lost and found is ordinary. Umbrellas forgotten on rainy mornings, scarves and gloves left behind in the winter rush. Workers collect them all, store them in back rooms, and keep them for a while before they're discarded or donated. But the red box doesn't follow that system. As far as anyone can remember, it's been here, pushed into the farthest corner of the shelves. A deep red wooden box, its paint peeling with age, its surface worn smooth. No one knows who left it here, or how long it's been sitting there, but it always has something inside. Sometimes it's something small, easily overlooked. A single shoe with its laces neatly tied, a rusty key that doesn't fit any lock in the station, a vintage photograph of a family standing in front of an old train. Sometimes it's something strange. A train ticket for a route that hasn't existed for decades, a pocket watch that ticks without being wound, a child's backpack filled with school books from a year no one remembers. And sometimes there's money inside. The red box has rules. Never empty it. You can take what's inside, but if you do, you must replace it with something else. Something you believe to be of equal value. I opened it only once, I confess to my colleagues. Inside was just a single 10,000 yen note. I took the bill, felt it in my hand, and from my pocket, I took out a small stone I had carried since childhood. Something my mother had given me. I placed the stone in the box and went home, put the money in my closet. Days later, I tried to use that money. It was gone, and in its place was my stone. My mother died young. I was 12. The only keepsake she left was a small gold ring. My father, overcome with grief, began to drink heavily. In my second year working at the station, one night, I felt the red box calling to me. I went and found the red box. When I opened it, inside was a photograph, a faded black and white photo. A young woman holding the hand of a small girl standing on a station platform. The woman's face was my mother, and the girl was clearly a young me. But that couldn't be possible. I have no memory of coming to this station with my mother, and the date on the photo was before my mother was even born. I felt a strong urge to take the photo home. In exchange, I took my mother's ring from my pocket. A fair trade, I murmured. The next morning, the photo was gone. Instead, by my pillow was my mother's ring, and a small note. It read, "Not yet time." I'm convinced the red box is not just a place of exchange. It manipulates time and memories somehow. Most people think they know this station well. They memorize the layout, the platforms, the exits. But no matter how well you think you know this place, there's something you never noticed. Take the platforms, for instance. There are 31 of them. clearly marked on signs hanging from the ceiling, maps, markers. All trains that stop here belong to one of these 31 platforms. But if you walk far enough past the busy walkways and waiting rooms, you might find something else. A half-rusted, barely readable unmarked sign. Platform 32. It's not on the official maps. Ask any worker here, and they will all say the same thing. There is no platform with that number. When I was new, I tried to go there. I tell the young station attendants. I saw the sign. Platform 32, but it wasn't on the map. As a curious newcomer, I decided to go there. The corridor grew darker, narrower, and the bustle of the station faded distant and thin. The air grew cold and heavy. The corner I turned revealed nothing, just a wall. But sometimes there are people with tickets for trains that don't exist. People with such tickets are different, old and young, sick and healthy, but always slightly out of place, slightly distant, as if their thoughts were somewhere else. I still vividly remember the weight of the air that night when I spoke with an old man near closing time at the station on a rainy evening. The smell of rain wafted through the station, and thunder rumbled in the distance. He wore a long coat and carried an old leather trunk. That trunk bore the marks of long journeys, scratches and scuffs, faded stickers from travel destinations. His eyes looked far away, the journey of a long life reflected in his pupils. "This is my last time coming to this station," he said. His voice was calm but full of certainty. "I've made many journeys, but tonight's journey will be my longest." There was a certain weight to his words, and from his pocket, I could just see a ticket with the number 32 on it. The ink was fresh, as if it had just been printed. "Don't board," I said. Urgency seeped into my voice. He smiled gently. Deep wrinkles carved with life's wisdom. "Nothing to fear, young one. Every journey has an end, and a new beginning too." He stood up and placed his hand on my shoulder. His hand was warm, and that warmth held a strange comfort. "It's good that someone like you is here. Someone like a bridge. Someone who can see." After he left, I thought about following him, but somehow my feet wouldn't move. The next morning, his obituary was in the newspaper. He had passed away quietly in his sleep last night. Sometimes, people on the brink of death appear at the station. They ask for tickets and quietly head toward the platforms. They know that their time has come. They go to the ticket booth, pay for their journey, and don't question when they're handed a slip of paper neatly stamped with 32 in black ink. Even if they notice the number isn't listed on the signs, they don't seem concerned. They walk through the station, take their time, find the sign, and then they're gone. No one sees them leave. No record of a train arriving. No announcement from the speakers. Just the quiet parts of the station where the lights buzz faintly. The air is still, and the sound of crowds fades like a dull memory. There are rumors, of course. Whispers about where the train goes, who boards it. But above all, rumors about the conductor. Only once, during a night shift, did I exchange words with that conductor. It was in my second winter working at this station. During a midnight round, I was inspecting an abandoned old corridor. Under the dim lighting, I saw someone standing. As I approached, it was a tall man wearing a perfect conductor's uniform. He turned and looked at me. His face was strangely ordinary, a face whose age couldn't be determined, or perhaps one that held all ages simultaneously. "Excuse me," I said. "This area is off limits, but..." He smiled. There was kindness in that smile. "I know. I'm just waiting." "For what?" I asked. Someone, he answered. She has been waiting for her journey for a long time. Tonight, she goes home. I noticed the badge on his chest. The number 32 quietly gleamed. You're. The words trailed off. He nodded with a peaceful expression. Nothing to fear. I harm no one. I just guide. The next time I saw him was during the incident with the elderly woman mentioned at the beginning. Why can I see these things? Why have I continued working at this station for 10 years? Since childhood, I felt different. While other children played, I sat in corners, talking to invisible friends. My parents worried. They took me to doctors, made me take medicine, but it didn't stop. When I majored in psychology in college, I tried to understand myself, but the textbooks had no explanation for my abilities. After graduation, I drifted between many jobs. I couldn't stay anywhere long. Then by chance, I ended up working at this station. On my first day, I felt it. This place is different. Here, my difference makes sense. For the first time, I wasn't alone. I can't explain it well. I see here, and it feels like my role. To see, to record, sometimes, to intervene. Last month, a little girl approached the red bear. Her mother was engrossed in her smartphone, unaware. The girl reached out to the bear, about to whisper to its mouth. I ran, shouted, "No," and grabbed her hand. The girl began to cry. Her mother looked at me with anger. Station security approached too. I risked my job. But that night, the girl appeared in my dream. "Thank you," she said. "He was about to eat me." Sometimes, I wonder if I'm truly sane. Is all this just my imagination? My grandmother used to say, there are things in the world that can't be explained. Having the courage to accept them is what's important. So here I am, selling tickets, doing paperwork, and seeing. I'm like a history book for this station. Someone who records events no one else wants to write down. Well, that's the end. I've been here all this time. Same early mornings, same late nights. Schedules change, crowds come and go, but the station remains the same. And you've been listening all along. And look, your train has arrived. Before you leave, I want you to remember the rules. They're simple, but important. Show respect to the headless worker. If you see him, greet him, nod. A quick greeting, just enough to acknowledge him. He still thinks he's one of us, and it's best to leave it that way. Never empty the red box. If you take something, give something. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you truly believe it's worth the trade. Otherwise, the box will decide what's fair, and you won't want that. Don't stand near the red bear after sunset. Keep your distance. Don't lean against it. Don't place your bag on its base. Don't linger too long. And if you see a child staring at it for too long, take their hand and move them away. And finally, if you find yourself with a ticket for the train on platform 32, regardless of how you got it, regardless of where you were supposed to go, don't board. Leave. Forget your journey. Throw the ticket in the nearest trash bin. Leave the station and don't look back. That train isn't for you. Most people passing through the station don't notice these things. They rush to their platforms, take a sip of coffee, check their phones, and leave without looking too carefully at the station around them. That's good. That's safe. But you now know better. So grab your bag, board your train, and go wherever you need to go. And if you pass through here again, I'll still be here, watching, listening, collecting stories. Perhaps we'll meet again. And if we do, we can talk a little more. Your train has arrived. It's time to go. But remember, next time you pass through this station, stop for a moment and look around. Feel the silence lurking beneath the chaos. Observe the shadows that flicker between busy people. You might notice what most people don't. And if you see something unfamiliar, don't be afraid. Most of them don't mean to harm you. They just want to be acknowledged. Just don't want to be forgotten. And me? I'm here, watching, listening, collecting stories. In any massive station, someone needs to guard the history. Someone needs to keep the memories. That's my role as a station attendant, as a storyteller, and sometimes as a guardian. Safe travels. And next time you pass through, wave to me. I'll remember you. And remember, sometimes the invisible appears to be seen, and to become the one who sees, you just need to stop and observe.